think I teased this one a while back in a short, and I don't think I ever did a video on it. So I'm going to do an overview of this radio and all that's been done to it. This is the Albrecht 497, Roadforce 497, Cherokee CBS-1000, Eagle Tomahawk, many others. But I'll show you how to use this thing. I don't show how to convert it because I don't remember. It's been too long ago. But done a few mods. I've changed the power supply to switching. I put a variable power, mainly just if you want to run an amp or you want to turn it down, because FM, this thing puts out full power all the time, so it gives you a little way to adjust it. So no further ado here, let's get this video started. Alright, beginning my overview here. These radios are not the greatest, I'll just put that out there. Anybody who's ever owned one probably knows what I mean. There are later models that do a little more power, but anyhow, just a brief overview. Out of the box, this is a 10 meter, they say all mode, but I don't think it does CW, so AM, FM, upper, lower, sideband. Basic controls, volume, squelch, RF gain, mic gain, clarifier, SWR calibration, mod meter. Pretty basic stuff. All of these I've ever seen, the RF gain never works. I think I might have had one new 20 years ago where it did for a short time and then it quit, and that was a radio that was never even opened up, modified in any way, was strictly used on 10 meters, and one day that just quit working. So without further ado, anytime you turn one of these on, you're going to be greeted with 10 meter FM default. Band selector is 2, doesn't do anything. So to get out of this state, you got to push function and hold number 2. If you push function and 2 again, it'll show you your frequency. Anytime you push 2, it'll change your bands now. So function 2. So here's 11 meters. Change mode to AM. Put it back on channel display. The microphones that come with these are crappy. I put a different element in here, a regular dynamic from a broken Cobra stock mic, but I like keeping this because it changes the channels. But these are not a powerhouse by any means. These radios put out the bare minimum. They put out like 4 or 5 watts turned up all the way, modulates to about 12 or so. I mean, they're not a powerhouse by any means. One thing I'd like to point out, if you have one of these radios and your lights are out and you can't figure out why, on the back of one of these light bulbs here, find which side is ground and just ground it out to the nearest point and your lights will start working. There's actually a little transistor in there that lets you go through the dim settings. See, it doesn't work on this one now because I've just grounded out, you know, the lights. So I'll open this up and show that in a minute. But your basics here is, I'm putting out about 3.5 watts. That sounds about right. Modulation meter, 1, 2, 3, audio. 1, 2, 3, audio. I did put a variable power on the back, like I said, because when you switch to FM, now we're keying up almost 10 watts. I wanted to be able to adjust that. If I take it back to AM, say 4 watts. FM, 10 watts. There's no different setting in there. They're both tied to the same pot. But they do sound all right. Audio, 1, 2, 3, audio. I did unlock the clarifier on this one. So let's take it to upper sideband. Audio, 1, 2, 3. I adjust the clarifier. Audio, 1, 2, 3. Send it back up again. Audio. Audio, 1, 2, 3. Now you can change your steps on here, just like this, but it's still not very precise. Let's take this to sideband here. There's probably not much going on with sunspots. Don't hear too much. There's not much activity. But let's take a closer look at this. Oh, remember how I showed you to get into the band? Every time you turn this radio off and turn it back on, no matter what, it's going to go back to 10 meters. There's newer versions of this radio that do retain your settings, but like the first 2 or 3 generations, they did not. So every time you turn this bad boy on, function, hold number 2, change the mode to AM or whatever mode you want. Now we're back in 11 meters. And the frequency range on this is, let's see here, all the way up to the end of 10 meters it should be. 29,655, all the way down to 25,165 in band A. So, gives you a pretty good spread there. Band E instead of D is your normal 11 meter band. But like I said, when I turn it off, turn it back on, I have to do that again every time. Every time. So if you got one of these and it feels like it's bricked or something you don't know how or you forgot, function, hold 2 every time. Some Cherokee models, you can make them remember, and some of the Eagle Tomahawks could make them remember, and they would always default to an 11 meter radio, but this always defaults to a sideband radio or a ham radio on FM, even though it's got other modes. Now, if you don't hold down that little trick and you save, you know, some memories or wherever you left off, it really doesn't matter, because it'll always take you back like the CPU is cleared every time. So if you don't modify this radio, you can store a couple of memories, but once you modify it, it's going to be this way every time. So let me spin this thing around and show what else I've done. Now, on the back of this radio, you can plug in a regular 3-pin, and you would have to switch this like that. Pretty self-explanatory. I put a variable power here. I think it was a 10K, 5K or 10K pot, I don't remember now. Put it right in place of the AM FM power pot right on the board. So this is so I can turn it up and down between AM and FM. So if I was running an amp and I didn't want to key 10 or 15 watts into it on FM, this right here, I don't run amps too often, so I just had to put it on there, because the default, you set it at 4 or 5 watts on AM and it's just 10, 15 watts on FM, which is a lot for this. Also, I put a switching power supply in here because there's another problem with these radios. If you've ever had one, these bad boys run hotter than the 7th circle of hell. Reason being, on this main board, the power supply in this is just a transformer right here. The rectifier and regulator and all that are on this main board. They're tied to the finals, audio chip, everything on one heatsink. And that regulator runs hot. It runs hotter than damnation. Now, you can modify and put you a little heatsink somewhere else and move that transistor and run some wires over, but it's also very inefficient. As it gets hotter, it kind of drops voltage. It's a really poor design. So once I open this up, you'll see what I did. I actually took the transformer out and I put a switching power supply in here. I don't remember if it was I think it was a 7.5 amp or an 8.5 amp Meanwell power supply, but it's very small. So let me get this open. And when you open these, you also have to be careful. You need to unplug your speaker as you're doing it before you just pull that off the board. Be right back. Now, when you open this up, the speaker actually has a plug down here on the board, right down yonder. So just, it's better to open it up from the back and just get your hand in there and unplug it and then set that aside. The modification I made to make my lights work again should be right there, I think. I just soldered a bridge to ground right there, I believe. You see where that's going on that lead. Sorry, the video is not very clear. I don't have a ton of light on it, but yeah. Power supply. See how that fit just perfect in there? anytime it's connected to AC, that light's always going to be on. It doesn't get hot, just like a Ranger. Looks like it is, how many DC amps? 8.5 DC amps. Don't touch here, this is actually live 110. But this is what I'm talking about. The power supply that came with it, here's the filter caps. There's that big honking transistor. You got your audio chip. See all this stuff you can see from the back. All this is mounted to this one plate as a heat sink. All of it, except for one driver here. Everything is mounted to this, and it just gets hotter than hell. And the hotter it gets, the lower your output's gonna be. Stuff starts dimming out, fading out. This one here, this is actually a Ranger pot. See if I can show it here. This is actually a Ranger pot that I ran right under the board, right to the AM FM main power pot. So pretty nice little compact design in there. Some people do put echo boards and all that junk in here. No, no. This radio is not a powerhouse. But what this radio is fun at, this radio is a very, very tiny radio. So as a base station, you want something that has all the frequencies and modes and bands. Let's see here. And this thing's less than 4 inches tall. Or if you take a Washington or something else, put it on the desk, you're almost 6 inches tall. It's a lot wider. Actually, back in the day, I had a President Washington, and I had one of these brand new from Copper as a Eagle Tomahawk. And if you are running an amplifier, turn your power down to 1 or 2 watts, and it's just fine. But this is not a powerhouse. This is not something that's going to key up 2 watts and swing to 25. It just won't. Even if you have the 25 watt version of this radio, it'll do it on sideband, but AM it's just weak. That's just the way these are. But nonetheless, they are a very good radio to be quite compact. They're very reliable. They don't really drift that much. Most of your frequency control is still all done CPU-wise, although you do have adjustments here on the board to kind of dial it in. When I unlocked the clarifier, I had to dial it in a little bit, but nice little setup here. So I think that'll probably do it for this one, but if you ever come across one of these, don't overpay for it. But if there's one like new in the box, somebody's wanting $150 or $200, that's about what they sold for new. But I see these things all beat up with the wrong knobs and everything else on them. $300-400, just let it pass. Without these modifications of a switching power supply, variable power, it's just not a good deal unless you got the very latest model, and there's no way to tell it. They're all 6-pin. You can actually tell if you have it in your hands by testing the voltage on the pin, like 5 volts or 8 volts, and you'll know if you have an early or late version. But that really doesn't matter. They're still not that great on AM. These are made in the Philippines. So I'll just button this back up again. I guess that's my quick little overview and review of this little compact 10-11 meter base station here. Now if you are just using this on 10 meters sideband where you can set your steps, it's perfectly fine. It'll work perfectly fine for that. So well, I guess I'll back out of this one. I'll say 73s to everybody. And you want to say bye-bye? No. You want to say bye-bye? Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Catch you on the next one.